Yeah.
But I will get one soon enough. It looks like we are almost live here. There we go. We are live. Let's tee it up and go. It's live before lock NFL style. So hopefully you guys are joining us from the deep dive MLB. Let's get this little puppy tweeted out here to our friends in Slack. It's your old pal Emac. I'm joined by one Nolan Kelly, who is coming to us from Canada. How is it up in the Great White North?
Oh, it's pretty good. Pretty good. I just got back from a week in Chicago hanging out with the powers that be at Awesemo.com. We are very thankful to not go to that Bears Packers game. So that was a plus, but we did get to watch it in a bar. And yeah, we're just enjoying the kickoff of the NFL season, just like you guys are. NFL's pretty darn big up here. So when I haven't we haven't done a show together in a long time. Hey Mac, I feel like that we have one together for Thanksgiving last year, which was the Amari Cooper slate breaker.
That is true. That was our last football one, and I think we got a NHL one in there at some point.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, yeah. You were the guest host of our NHL All Star break.
It was, and then I got tabbed in a couple more times there at the end because I actually play NHL now. So
Nice. That's awesome.
you got to
Yeah.
go find the little edges where you can. I embrace the variance. I'm not as fond on football. It was a rude awakening for me yesterday. A big reminder that we don't know what's going to happen. That there are basically 17 data points. That literally anything can happen. I mean, in any of your wildest outcomes, would you have said Lamar Jackson was going to throw for 5 touchdowns and 300 yards?
Yeah, that's the thing. And I struggled with that a lot yesterday because I figured that part of the problem with rostering Lamar Jackson was figuring out who to pair him with, right? And like the obvious answer is Mark Andrews. He also has shown some favorability to Willie Snead, but we didn't really know that any of these rookie wide receivers are going to be that good. I heard Laffy and Manny Laura today talking about Marquise Brown and how he did all that on like 14 snaps or something yesterday. So this is stuff you just can't predict. And I think he was like 0.02 owned or something in milli makers across the board. So we're not alone in predicting that. I think you're probably searching at straws, trying to figure out who's gonna actually form a combo with someone like Lamar Jackson. So yeah, if you had Sammy Watkins though, you probably did pretty well. And that's about it. A lot of the chalk running backs kind of came through. So
All right, I'm just pulling up the inactives list here. The NFL makes it just so hard to find this reasonably quickly. So here are the key ones for the first game. Now they announced these 90 minutes before kickoff, so we won't have the second game till we're off air. But Kiki Kuti is out, and Logan Paulson is as well. I mentioned that just because the Texans are very thin at tight end, and we didn't know for sure who was going to be in there. That name just pops up. He was so far down the depth chart, and he may even be dinged up. He former Redskin, so I'm not surprised he's out. With regards to New Orleans, the only person that's inactive on the offensive side of the skill position is Austin Carr. So that's not going to change our plans either. I don't think we were really worried about anybody being out, and it was pretty well expected that Kiki Kuti was going to be out. That, of course, will thrust some people into prominence that we may or may not have been expecting. Perhaps a Kenny Stills or some other players. We could see Duke Johnson in the slot. Who knows? It's going to sort of be catch as catch can, and this one ought to be very interesting, Nolan. Now, this will be the fun part. So we have a primetime slate here. It's a 2-game. It's the only doubleheader on Monday night. The NFL traditionally started this, I don't know, 12 or so years ago, and it makes for content producing just a little wonky because the sites did not release their prices until late yesterday afternoon or into the night for not only just the 2-game slate but also the 2 single-game slates. So this won't be quite as jumbled going forward, and we will continue to do the Live Before Lock NFL Showdown show on Thursdays, Sundays, and Mondays. So this one is just kind of a little wonky because there's 2 and there's a primetime slate.
yeah, so we'll be on an hour before. You and I are going to do the Monday show. I think it's Ben, Alex, and I on the Wednesday show, or sorry, the Thursday show, and then you and Alex on the Friday show.
Yep. So that'll be kind of how that one breaks down. So what you kind of did the look at this one. I'll drop your article link in the chat. I did the second game, but we've got a lot to talk about here. There's also, because this is going to kickoff is at 7:10 tonight for that first game, coinciding with baseball. So I'm going to hit the crunch button a couple times here and upload some lineups because I was a dork and registered for baseball today. I don't know what I was thinking.
Wow. Looks like as well our sponsor Fantasydraft, they have a new Hooters $1 million Sunday contest with 40,000 entries. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to check out Fantasydraft. I played there this week for the first time and really liked it. I'm going to sign up for their monthly packages to lessen some of these rakes. Why pay 16% rake when you can pay like 3 or 4% rake? So I'm going to start playing way more on Fantasydraft moving forward. I think people on the site are probably like, you're probably not going to get as many pros on there as well. So there's a lot of advantages to playing on there, and especially because like I don't know, like I find a lot of these rakes on the bigger sites exorbitant. So I'm more than happy to pay a little bit less.
Yeah, absolutely. So here's the promo. So it's they're the only full rake-free daily fantasy site in the business. So they've partnered with Hooters and they're bringing back the $1 million contest as Nolan mentioned here for week 2. It'll be absolutely rake-free and it's a guaranteed contest. $1 million, 100,000 first. So in the history of daily fantasy sports, this is the first time we've seen anything like this. So
Yeah.
on Fantasydraft and only on Fantasydraft is everything 100% what's paid in is what comes out. If it's guaranteed and less comes in, that's what comes back out. So they had to pay $1 million out. They got about 600 or so, 670,000 into their contest, but they're running it back again. So we'll see what happens. But if you sign up fantasydraft.com today, use the referral code AWESEMO, AWESEMO, you'll get a 7-day free trial membership. So how this works, because I put money in there for this weekend. So this is exactly how it works. Now you're gonna put money in, and you're gonna see it's gonna charge you 3%, and you're gonna get pissed. Don't. Let's talk through this. Then you're gonna go and you're gonna realize I can play up to $100 a month and not have to pay anything. You can use the Awesemo promo code and get 7 days to play $1,000 through. And then if you stay on that level, it's like $5, and that's $5 per $1,000 per month. If you go to the next level, because you go over that, then you bump up to I think it's $12 or somewhere in that range. Basically, what you're paying is if you meet that minimum to get to the second level, it's $3,000. You put in say $500. You're paying 4% one time. That's it. DraftKings, Fanduel, you're paying 15%, 16% every single time you enter a contest, unless it's head-to-head, and sometimes it's less. So, yeah, you're paying 3% up front, but then you're not paying it down the rest. So, people, math is your friend on this one, and I just want to call it out because I saw people getting pissy on Twitter. Oh, they're charging me 3%. The other sites don't do that. No, and they're not charging you 16% to go into their contests.
Yep.
There you go. There you go.
Nice. All right.
Rant over. I'll rant again later.
Nice. Should we dive into these games?
Absolutely. Let's do this.
Nice. Where do you want to start? Should we go? Let's start with this Houston New Orleans game. I guess it's the first one up here. I wrote up the Saints and Texans here. You wrote up the exciting Broncos and Raiders game after this. My God, you couldn't have two more disparate games in a single slate. I don't even know if I'm going to be able to watch that Broncos Raiders game. It's going to be tough. So for this one, there's a lot to like about both of these passing offenses. I'm a big fan of Deshaun Watson. Big fan of using him and 2 or 3 of these receivers. I also think that with that news that Kiki Kute's out, Duke Johnson is going to line up in the slot, and he's probably going to get a few targets. And I think if you want a sleeper and you want to go a little bit down the roster, Kenny Stills is an intriguing option at 5,400 on DraftKings. I don't have the FanDuel pricing up, but there's a flyer for you as well. He should get some more snaps with Kiki Kute out.
Yeah, and that is the question mark, and then it becomes how are we allocating salary? Talk a little strategy. We'll talk a variety of other things as we go through the show here. Last night, the show we did with I did it with Eric. He's a new contributor to our site, actually located up in Chicago, but did not know Alex and Tom. Funny enough, when he got in here, because I was asking him like, "Oh my God, everybody's in Chicago." He's like, "Yeah, I never knew who those guys were." So he goes, "I met him now, and I've done a show with him because he did the celebrity draft." So that was his debut. But he'll be doing the Sunday shows with me for Showdown. But we took a little bit of a different tact for our build. It's a more leisurely show when you only have one game on it, and there'll be different strategies. So today, as Nolan mentioned, the second game, it's crappy. We're going to approach that differently as a standalone than we would on the others. The 2-game slate here, which I'm playing, I am building with most of my players from this first game. The second game, really, I'm looking at some concentrated players. I don't care about the quarterbacks. I am okay with Philip Lindsay. I'm okay with Cortland Sutton. I really, really, really like Jalen Richard, just for his price. And I'm okay with Philip Lindsay. That's about it. Those are really the only guys I like. So it'll be interesting, an exercise to watch my currently winnings go down as other people are catching me with points, depending on how my early guys do. But that's something that it's such a crappy game. The second one, just be careful with how you're allocating things out, is my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. Are you playing the 2-game slates or the single showdowns back to back?
Oh, all of them.
Nice.
But I'm an idiot, so there we go.
Awesome. So yeah, let's dive into these matchups, I guess. What's your take on this Houston New Orleans quarterback situation? Say you're running a showdown. Are you opting for Deshaun Watson in most of your lineups? Are you going to pair up? Are you gonna use Drew Brees at all? This has become a very run heavy offense in New Orleans, and I think a lot of people aren't fully used to seeing that out of New Orleans. It's not something that we associate with this offense, but they ran the ball at the fifth highest amount of time in the NFL last year, and their pace is actually a lot slower than we think too. So I'm really high on Deshaun Watson here. I'm really hoping that the ownership goes to Drew Brees just based off of name recognition, based off of the fact that the Saints are implied for more points, and I'm hoping that some of these stacks with Deshaun Watson will be a little bit more contrary than they should be, just based off the fact that I think he's a much higher upside play.
Yeah, so let's look at it from the 2-game slate. I'm setting it so I'm trying to force in at least 50% Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
Be a little tricky because if you want to play 2 of his pass catchers, it's, and you put in Hopkins and you start to go to Fuller, you're going to be looking at the Raiders defense or the Broncos defense. You're going to be looking at Jalen Richard. You're going to need a cheap tight end somewhere. And there are plays out there that'll get us there for that. But it's one of those where you're going to have to be careful what you wish for. So if you're building a lot of lineups, definitely look and see what the optimizers are putting. So kind of my placeholder. So this is going to be the chalky lineup is my best guess. I've got Watson. This is DK. Watson, Lindsay, Jalen Richard, Fuller, Deshaun Hamilton, Hopkins, Cook, Kamara, and the Broncos. Now let's pick this apart. And normally we're not going to give a lineup, but this is like the obvious lineup. I think there's like $100 left when you build this. Deshaun Hamilton. Do we know what kind of volume he's going to get? No, we don't. We also don't know exactly what's going to happen with Philip Lindsay and Royce Freeman. And we don't know exactly what's going to happen with Jalen Richard and the new rookie. His name is escaping me. Jacoby? We'll get to that game in a second. But we don't know what's going to happen. What do we know what's going to happen for New Orleans? You mentioned it. They're going to be kind of run heavy. Well, does that mean Kamara and Murray? Is Murray really going to walk into that Ingram role, which had a little more of a pass-catching lean to it than what Murray has done in the past? That doesn't mean he can't do it. Murray's a perfectly fine running back. I mean, he was adequate in Minnesota. He was fine he was in Oakland there for a little bit, I believe. But he's one of those guys that he's been pigeonholed as we'll give it to him near the end zone. He's actually an all-around back. He just never has played on the right team to showcase that because he's always been the secondary or tertiary guy. So, how much is that going to work into Kamara? What's going to happen with Cook? He was a monster last year when he was with Oakland. Is Drew Brees going to throw more? I don't know. Let's pick Drew Brees' pass attempts for today's game. I'm going to set the over/under at 27.5.
Oh wow. Okay. I'm gonna say he goes under that.
Okay. Where would you? My initial number was 25, but I thought, yeah, they're probably going to throw more than that. I haven't
Yeah.
looked at any lines. I don't even know where they are, so this is my line.
Yeah, it's tough to say because you have two conflicting narratives here, right? You have New Orleans who wants to establish that they're going to be able to run the ball, their run first team. That's what they want to do about 60% of the time. But then you have Houston who is actually third best team in run DVOA last year. That's the strength of this defense. They're really bad at defending number one receivers, mediocre defending secondary receivers, but really good against the run. So it's basically going to become a test of will. I think it's going to be New Orleans trying to establish the run. And if they can establish the run, then I think then that they will be able to limit Brees's passing attempts. However, if Houston gets up and they have to throw the ball to stay in this game, this could turn into a shootout. So there's a number of different ways I could see this game breaking, but I kind of lean towards New Orleans wanting to establish the run.
Yeah, and I'm looking at it here. So the over under is 52 for this game. Texans basically 23 implied run total. Saints 29, depending on how many the site you're going at. Is it what? But they'll all kind of land in that same area. So playing it out, do you see more than 2 touchdowns in Drew Brees' cards?
I would bet on the. I mean, I guess that's like right on the number probably. I mean, the Saints do tend to run the ball at a pretty high rate. They ran it at the 6th highest rate in the red zone last year and inside the 5-yard line. Kamara was 3rd in the NFL in rushes inside the 5-yard line, and then as well, Mark Ingram was in the top 15 as well in rushes inside the 5-yard line. So my instinct is to say that they would prefer to run it, and that's what we've seen. So it's hard pressed to say if he's gonna throw over 2 touchdowns. I wager that's going to be right on the marker. But I mean, this game shoots out, then you never know, right?
So continuing to play that through, if he only throws for 2 touchdowns, conceivably, who do we think they'll go to? Well, best chance is probably Thomas, but what could Thomas get to? It could go to I'm blanking on the Traquan Smith, Ted Ginn Jr., Cook, and then last year, good God, it's like they were on several primetime slates. It was like somebody else scored every week. One week it was Austin Carr, then it was somebody else, then it was Traquan Smith had his breakout game on a primetime slate. They were just forever popping up with new players. And it's the tight end, but not the tight end we thought that was going to be playing. Who knows what's going to happen. Brees has been around for freaking ever. He's not going to play favorites. He's going to take what the defense gives him. What is this defense going to give him? They don't have Jadeveon Clowney. They're pissed about that he walked away. Or, we won't get into that. I mean, hey, nobody does it like Antonio Brown. So Jadeveon Clowney actually had a decent standing. He was like, pay me or put the franchise tag on me. And then they said, oh, we were trying to trade you. And he's like, okay, well, then trade me because now I don't want to play for you, even if you put the franchise tag on me. So that I get. But, what is their defense going to be like? Because you could argue, well, he was, obviously he's no J.J. Watt, but he's been a fine defender, inconsistent a lot. But what is this defense really going to shut us down? This is no longer, and the Saints defense has been pretty good. So point being, it's not quite the Coors Field of football anymore without the Saints, airing it out, Brees throwing for 5,000 yards passing and passing 40 times a game. It's going to be entirely different. That's going to slow the clock, quote, take the air out of the ball, whatever little platitude you want to pick. So that starts to make me nervous. So on the single game slate, I set it up that I did not make Brees. So like if I said if Thomas is my captain, I'm not forcing in Brees. If Kamara's my captain, I don't have to have Brees in my lineup. If Cook's my captain, I don't have Brees in my lineup. I went the other way with Watson. I said if it's Hopkins, I want Watson. If it's Fuller, I want Watkins. Even if it's Hill, I want Watkins. Not Hill. I'm sorry, Stills. I want Watkins. Or Watson. Sorry, I'm getting everybody confused here. But that's what my point is. You can have a good game from any of the Saints receivers, and it's not going to mean that Drew Brees has a quote good game. But there are only 2 quarterbacks in this game, though. So it's the prisoner's dilemma. What are we going to do?
Well, I mean, I'm personally on Deshaun Watson here way more than I am on Drew Brees. Though, like the argument certainly can be made for Drew Brees because like he really only averaged a point less than Deshaun Watson in regular scoring last year. So it's not like there's this huge discrepancy. But what we have here is Drew Brees going up against the the 4th ranked passing defense in the NFL last year, and Deshaun Watson getting the 30th ranked passing defense in the NFL. You have Eli Apple, you have Marshawn Lattimore, and you have PJ Williams. All 3 of those corners ranked in the bottom 15 in yards per snap allowed last season. That to me says plus matchup. So definitely favoring Deshaun Watson. In terms of who Brees is going to be targeting here, I mean, I think the obvious answer is Michael Thomas. It's likely that he's going to see some Jonathan Joseph, but he moves all over, lines up all over an offense. So there probably won't be any kind of shadow. We have Aaron Colvin returning for the Texans, probably going to man the slot for them. And then we have Sharice Wright as well. So where they're weakest, I think, is probably that other cornerback spot. Kareem Jackson's gone over to the Denver Broncos. And we have name escaped me, Bradley Roby coming actually a little trade of quarterbacks over from Denver. So that's a weak spot for me. I like Ginn and I like Tre'Quan Smith here as well. I think if you're gonna use Brees, then you're gonna want to pair him up with at least 2 pass catchers, and one of those could be Kamara, obviously. But I like Tre'Quan Smith. I like Ted Ginn Jr. Really just comes down to ownership for me, depending on which one of those 2 I would go to more. As well, Tre'Quan Smith's $800 cheaper on Draftkings and a little bit cheaper on Fanduel as well.
Here, so drum roll, please. We don't have the single game popularity, but we do have updated primetime popularity here. So it would appear that your dream scenario of Deshaun Watson not being incredibly popular, this is the 2-game show or primetime slate. He's 29%. I feel good about saying I want 50. I see that Nolan popped out. He will pop right back in. We were worried about this, so not the fair. You got me here for a moment. Let me just say, remind him. Note, and then we will go on. So, in any event, here we've got what we're looking at in that first one, where we've got our ownership here, popularity, as I like to call it. So Drew Brees is coming in at 30%. This is DK. Deshaun Watson at 23. Tom Brady is that was part of last night's game. So it'll be a little higher for these guys because Carr is at 5 and Flacco is at 5. So basically just double everything. That'll get us partway there. So what you can see is proportionally, those guys in the late game are really not going to be there in this one. But what you're going to see is clearly Brees and Watson are going to come pretty close here. I still think Watson is the way that we want to go on this, and that's what I will be looking for. When we get over on our buddies here at FanDuel, let's take a gander here. We're seeing it about the same. So Brees is just a tick under 30. Watson's just a tick over. That'll be something that we'll want to keep in mind. Now, let's continue on with this game here. So, running backs. What are we going to do? I don't know. This is where we have a lot of question marks that are going to come through, and it's obviously that Lamar Miller got hurt. Duke Johnson, they traded for him, and then randomly his nemesis Carlos Hyde is in the mix there as well. Nolan, what are you thinking here about the Houston running back situation?
So I'm not super interested in anything other than Duke Johnson here. I think that you have the Saints run defense, which was number 4 in DVOA last year. They're a pretty solid run defense. You have the Saints offensive line, which is just absolutely atrocious. They were the 32nd ranked run blocking unit in the entire NFL last year. Like they're one of the worst units in the entire NFL, if not the worst. I know they got Laremy Tunsil. I know that they addressed that in the draft a little bit. But one of the advantages I like and why I like the Saints so much in this game is just because I think they're going to win that war of the trenches. And I think that those 62 sacks allowed and their ability to stop the run is going to leave the Texans forced to pass, I think. And I think that the a main advantage is going to be from Duke Johnson catching passes in more of a slot role with Kiki Kudia, which makes him playable. But I'm just not sure what to do with any of these other Houston running backs. If it's going to be Carlos Hyde, he's too expensive for me. If it's one of these other guys like Tywan Jones or who's the other guy they've got, Buddy Howell, like that just doesn't interest me. So I'm a little bit trepidatious about attacking the Saints via the run using the Houston Texans with the Houston Texans offensive line in front of them.
That would be the definite concern. Now, as we're turning it over to the Saints, it really looks like a two-man backfield. Meaning, is there a third that could horn in and get any love that you're aware of?
I don't think so. Yeah, nothing that I would certainly worry about unless you're talking about a totally like random one-off. Dwayne Washington is their third stringer. Zach Line is their fullback. I mean, sure, Zach Line could get the odd 1 yard carry, 1 yard plunge, but for the most part, I think that this team wants to use Latavius Murray and Alvin Kamara, especially inside the 5 yard line. As I mentioned earlier, both of those guys pretty strong red zone options for this team, and I don't really see them like subbing out Alvin Kamara for like a Zach Line or something. So this is going to be a two-headed monster. I think Latavius Murray's upside is probably not quite what Mark Ingram's was because he just doesn't have that pass catching ability out of the backfield. So I'd be a little bit worried about pairing him up with in any Drew Brees lineups. But I like both of these guys. I think if you're going to be contrarian, you can also roster both of them in the same lineup, which is interesting if the Saints are able to get their way and establish the run.
All right. Now, if we break down the wide receivers, obviously it's going to be Hopkins, the clear choice. If we then look and say, who's going to be second, it's probably got to be Fuller because Stills just hasn't put a lot of time in there. What do you think is going to happen with Stills, and what do you think is going to happen with Duke Johnson potentially splitting out some of the time?
Yeah, I think like Duke Johnson's probably the safer play. I think you're going to see a lot of shorter targets. I don't think that's a mind-blowing hot take or anything. I think if you're going to enter some Draftkings showdown slates, depending on what the ownership is, I don't think we have ownership for this slate. Am I correct?
I was just looking. We don't. They'll update it here shortly. They're trying to finish baseball.
Yeah, it's usually it's tough with these two gamers to get ownership on that. But I think that what I just like totally spaced out there. UMac, what was the question?
Stills and Duke Johnson.
Stills, yeah. So Stills is nothing more than a flyer for me. I think he can, like maybe he catches a deep pass. He's a talented receiver, and he can play that Will Fuller role. Will Fuller to me is like my favorite choice for captain this these showdown slates because he's just got that huge high end potential, right? Like he's either going for 180 yards and 2 TDs or he's going to get injured in the first quarter and get nothing. So I think that a lot of people are going to put Hopkins in as their showdown captain or possibly Hopkins, and I like pivoting off that maybe a little bit. I don't know if it's going to be much of an advantage, but Will Fuller certainly, you get a bit of savings and you have that high upside that could win you a tournament.
Now, we hate to talk about it, we hate to bring it up, but Will Fuller tends to have hamstring issues. We never know when that's going to happen. Did he have anything in camp that would concern you that this could be any sort of issue for him today?
I haven't heard anything. Like I've heard he's a full go. I've seen like in best balls, I've seen that he's had the little yellow tag injury designation when drafting him, but it doesn't look like there's anything that would make you let's see. It says I'm just looking up here. Houston Chronicle believes Will Fuller's made a full recovery from his ACL tear. So he's one of the most dangerous deep threats in the game, and if he's fully healthy, then I'm on board for sure.
All right, now I hadn't heard anything about that either. I just wanted to make sure because a lot of moving parts here in week one, and sometimes you start to think of things. Like what's going on with the depth chart with the 49ers. Well, now it really doesn't matter because Tevin Coleman's hurt. But, was Matt Breida really going to be number one? There's all these little things. It's like, well, how did that play out? Where did we end on that? Because those are the questions that up at night, and you don't want to miss anything obvious here. All right, tight end for the Texans. I don't even know who it is.
Yeah, I don't think you can. I think it's Darren Fells. Is that right?
Sounds about right.
let's look it up here just to make sure. But yeah, this offense has never really used a tight end. I was actually kind of sneakily high on Jordan Thomas this year. He was a spark standout, and he has all the tools I think to become a dominant tight end, but they just never really seem to use a tight end at all. So if Logan Paulson's inactive, you got Jordan Aikens and Jarrell Adams. That's not exactly exciting. Unless you're basically, if you're punting with that position, Darren Fells is $400 on DK. You're hoping for a fall into the end zone 1 yard touchdown, which it's not out of the realm of possibility. But I'm certainly not making him a core play or anything like that. What about yourself?
Well, that's why I'm asking, because I think this is a good talking point. So you've got the other guy who's interesting is Jordan Aikens on his team. Now, both these guys, all it takes is just 2 catches and 30 yards, and they're going to be popping everywhere in the optimizers because they are so low priced on Draftkings. And this is where it becomes intriguing because Fells is 400 in the captain, he'll be 6. Aikens is 600 in the captain, he'll be 900. So that makes them they're coming into a lot of my lineups, and I'm trying to decide where I want to cap them at. Do I want to suppress what we're doing for their popularity a little bit? So what if maybe I'll put each one of them in at 45 because I don't want them coming in on 80% of my lineups here.
No. And this is nothing more than a flyer. I think usually, from what I've seen the pros do, and from what I've studied of showdown slates, they do not rely on these kind of flyers very often. Like they can destroy your bankroll pretty quickly if you're going to roster Darren Fells in a high percentage. Maybe like 1 or 2 lineups if you're MMEing. That's about all you need. I personally wouldn't put him in the captain spot at all. Now watch me say that, and he'll go out and have like 2 catches for 12 yards and 2 touchdowns.
All right. Well, that can always happen. So I'm looking at here. I'm gonna do. Let's see, how many have I built here? So I built 10 lineups. I really wanted 20. So let's build 20. And I'm going to build some by hand. I wanted to see where everybody came out. So I got Watson coming in at 30% at the captain spot, Brees at 15, Kamara at 15, Michael Thomas at 5, Hopkins at 5, Duke Johnson at 15, Aikens at 10, and then Fells at 5. It feels like maybe I'll set those guys so they can't come in at more than 1.
Yeah.
Nervous, but I didn't say Will Fuller, and you liked Will Fuller. Well, here's the neat thing we can do is I can come in here and I can say, okay, there's my first run. Now I will come in and I will lock in Will Fuller as a captain, and I will just build 5 Will Fuller captain lineups.
I like it.
And now I've got him
correlating with Deshaun Watson too, right?
So that would be him coming in with Watson. And then let's see, Drew Brees, I think, is someone we probably want to look at, etc. So this is kind of how you make sure you're getting what you thought would be a good idea amongst your different teams. So I left 20 lineups to build like that.
Nice.
The night game will be a little bit easier for me. Now I set up groups and I did some other stuff and got everybody kind of where I wanted them to be because I knew I was going to be on air. So I'm not playing a ton of volume on this because I'm doing baseball, football, tiers for both sports, etc. So I got way too much going on. But I had played around with this at lunchtime here just to kind of see what my mixes were going to be. And I had assumed that QT would be out. So this is working out about where I want it. Now I'm getting more Saints than I would have thought, but it's because there's really no secondary plays here. So I'm getting a little bit of Keith Kirkwood. Jordan Aikens is a cheapie for me, as we mentioned. The kickers are cheapies. Doesn't look like I'm getting either defense. I thought I might get a little bit of the Saints defense, but it doesn't look that way. So that's what I'm doing for the single game.
D, but yeah, it's tough to roster a D in a 52-point game. But there's a lot of sack potential with the difference in quality between the Saints pass rush and the Houston Texans pass protection. So if you want to sneak in some Saints D, I think into your lineups as a contrarian play, I kind of like it.
Yeah, and if we remember that glorious game, Kansas City and the Rams last year, where they scored like 1 million points. The Kansas City defense, if I'm remembering correctly, defense/special teams, I thought they had 2 touchdowns, even in a game where there was like literally like 95 or almost 100 points scored.
Yeah,
weirdness Weirdness can happen. This is a one-game sample size, but it doesn't feel the best. Now, we want to talk a little bit about game selection, and then we'll talk more about the other game here. So, game selection is if you want to play the obvious players, the common players, the ones that are going to be 60, 70% owned, and you want all of them on your lineup because you feel good, don't put that lineup in the big tournament. You're not going to win. You probably aren't even going to win cash, even if you literally get everything you want. What you do is you play three mans, not triple ups, three mans. Go find a three man, find somebody's name you don't recognize, go into that one. Don't worry if they have a badge or not. If it's not one of the usual stalwarts of the DFS world, you're going to be fine. Play those guys. You can do head to heads as well. I have found more success doing that than I have with the tournaments because I don't like to play the big giant top heavy tournaments in this because I'm still finding my way on the single game slates. But I found where do I think I can arbitrage a little bit of value? Let's put 40, 50, 100 bucks out there. And if I'm winning, 30 or 40 off of that, meaning I'm winning my 100 back and then another 30 or 40, that's a fantastic night. If I'm only losing, 20% of it, it's entertainment value. So that's kind of the way I've been approaching the single game slates because I did, 50 articles for these last year. So I like writing them up. I like analyzing them. But it's hard to figure out what exactly is going to happen on any given night. Otherwise, we'd all be on our own private islands.
Yeah, absolutely. I got no problem with that. I'm just more of a GPP kind of a player, but you got to do you. And if that's your style, go for it. Especially because you don't have to find those like crazy deep plays or try and get too creative with your lineups, right? Like you can correlate and probably still find an edge on the field for sure.
Yeah, and this is just me. So it comes down to contest selection. Hey, you want to be a little crazy? Play a 10-man. All of a sudden you're getting, if you win a 10-man, you're going to get 3x. You're going to need like a 1% lineup to even get 3x in the big tournaments. So yeah, you're not going to win you're not going to share the $100,000 top prize with 230 of your best friends, but you're at least have a realistic chance of tripling your money.
Hey, so I'm just looking at Alex's or Osimo's rankings here, and it looks like he's got Jordan Aikens pretty high here. So maybe I was totally off on the Fells news. 17 catches, 225 yards, and 16 games as a rookie. Maybe he'll end up starting. He's $600, getting a really high value rating in Osimo's ranking. So you know what I do when my opinions counter to Osimo is I trust Osimo. So I like that. I like that take a lot. One of the highest value plays we have on the slate tonight. Don't think I'd pop him in the captain slot, but if he comes through with a couple catches or a touchdown catch at just $600, that's huge value.
Looking at so now this is technically Fells is the starter on the Houston depth chart. This is HoustonTexans.com/team depth chart. All the teams have these. If you just type in their team name and depth chart, you'll end up here. Now, but that doesn't. We don't know is Darren Fells going to be more of a blocker because hey, Jesse James was a starting tight end a lot for Pittsburgh in his time there, and he was a blocker. So what's going to happen? We don't know. If it's a passing situation and they think Aikens is the better guy, then maybe they're going to put Aikens in. So it's one of those. We don't know a lot about either guy. We haven't seen anything. They're relatively young, and the existing guys have been hurt. What are they going to do? Let's not kid ourselves. We really don't know. So I think that is an intriguing leverage spot. But
yeah, absolutely. He's not going to be highly owned. So I've got no problem going to him in large GPPs for sure.
Yeah. Let's see here. We want to talk about the other game. You want to throw some questions my way here?
Let's do it. We got anything else on this New Orleans thing? Are you what's your general take? Are you echoing the same sentiment as me? Are you higher on Deshaun Watson? It sounds like you're getting twice as much Deshaun Watson as you are Drew Brees.
Yeah, that's I want, and now I'm building my 2-game lineup. So I want 50% of Watson in this one. I just figure he's going to touch the ball on every play. I mean, say that about the quarterback, but he has running upside. He has passing upside. He's been one of the most dynamic people we've seen. Does that happen tonight? I don't know, but it's not going to be Drew Brees that's running well. That's Drew Brees did run for 2 touchdowns in the game in the last 2 seasons, but that was like the second time in his freaking career, probably back to grade school, that he had done that. So, point being, do you want the dynamic playmaker? I do, especially when we start talking about this next.
Yes, absolutely. If you're playing on 2 game slates, you're probably going to want to load up on that first game slate. So I don't think I'm going to have too much of this game, especially if you're playing on Yahoo or any of these sites that have just the 2 game contests. It's tough to get to a lot of these guys, but we'll see because Osmo does have some really highly graded players in this game, specifically on the Oakland side of the ball. Possibly little Josh Jacobs. What are you doing with the quarterbacks in here? Do you have any Joe Flacco, Derek Carr love? Any hot takes on that end?
I am going to cap both of them around 10 to 15%. Yeah, it doesn't quite all add up, but it's going to be Brees that gets a little bit more than either of these guys on my 2 game slates. On the single game slate, I think I had what, like, I'm going off memory here. I think Flacco was like my third listed player, and let me call that up because this is actually a good point. So I write the article, I break it down each team by position, then I go and rank everybody. We do kind of a top 10 and then sleepers. So Flacco, I ended up putting number 1. So I was bouncing back and forth. Now here's why. I wanted to put him like third. I couldn't convince myself that I knew what Philip Lindsay's role was going to be compared to Royce Freeman. I love the Jalen Richard price. He's not as greatly priced on Fanduel, and I usually look at these with a little bit more of a DK edge because I think there's additional strategy on DK because your captain costs you 1.5 times, but they score 1.5 times whatever they actually get. FanDuel, fine product, all of that, but everybody gravitates towards putting the top guy in the top position because why wouldn't you? It doesn't cost you anymore. I also like the aspect of the full PPR because it brings people into play like Jalen Richards. So Richards, I think, is a fantastic option on Draftkings. I think I would drop him 4 or 5 spots even on the single game slate in my rankings for there. And that's why I even put that in there. I said, hey, let's drop him down another 5 or 6 spots on FanDuel because I would rather play on FanDuel, counting their prices, knowing full well it embraces a little more on the TD, a little less on the half point PPR. But I'd rather have Royce Freeman, Josh Jacobs, Derek Carr, Cortland Sutton, and probably Tyrell Williams than Richard. But on DK, he's my number 3 guy in the single game slate. So you got to really understand what you're looking at here. And I like to call out the different things I'm doing on the sites because DK, you've got defense, FanDuel, you don't. Both sites you have kicker. DK, you have a little more extreme sleepers, or pardon, not sleepers, extreme discounted players, but those guys are priced at $200 or $300 or $500 because they don't do anything. And then you got to figure everything else out. So that's kind of where I'm going with my overall makeup of the late slate. Only. I will set Flacco. I will set probably everybody at 10% capping my captain because I don't know who it's going to be. I just want a shotgun approach, bunch of pieces in this one, and then let's see what happens when the dust settles because I don't know what's going to happen. And if anybody else believes they know what's happening, yeah, we really don't.
Yep, totally agree. And hey, you're right. Flacco, number 1 ranked for you, number 1 ranked for Osmo as well. So we have him projected for 17.74 fantasy points tonight, which is probably what I'm guessing half of what Deshaun Watson's going to be. Are you if you're rostering Flacco, who you're pairing with tonight? Are you a believer that Emmanuel Sanders is all the way back?
No,
Are
I specifically called out that I'm not. Now, yes, he's fully healthy. Yes, he was practicing. Yes, he played in the preseason. This is week 1. Why are they going to push him? I would be shocked if he is in on more than half of the snaps. That is just at anything or seen anything, but that would be how I would approach it if I was a coach and knowing that I have 15 games after this one and I'm really going to need him this year. I would have him with a little more kid gloves because I don't put all my hopes on, Tim Patrick. Our guy. Why did we like him last year? No, it wasn't because he was good. It was because he was near the minimum price and he was catching, 3 or 4 balls per game. So we can't really count on that. Looks like Nolan's dipping out here on us again, so we will have to see when he comes back here. But from that standpoint, we will let's just check here. One guy we didn't talk about in the first game there, Nolan. I got to see if I can fix. Oh, you're gonna be talking, but I'm not gonna fix your little window here. We'll just keep it like it. Can they hear you? All right. We'll see if Nolan comes back. The backup quarterback. That's the interesting question there is what'll happen there with Taysom Hill. So he gets in on the goal line packages, and that's just one of the things that lessens Drew Brees a little bit. You really need him to get a touchdown, but guess what? You really need anybody down at his price and below to get you a touchdown to be worthwhile. So those would be, he is definitely in play. I don't know what's going to happen. I bet he probably gets 8 snaps tonight, though. That would be my guess. Any Taysom Hill thoughts? Circling back on that one.
Taysom Hill, yeah. So I always find that he's over-owned in showdown slates. So that's kind of why we're circling back to the Saints. Sorry, I cut out again. I think I've got my connectivity problem sorted here. So yeah, I'm never a Taysom Hill guy just because I think like people love to kind of think that they're sharp by rostering him, and he goes over-owned, and he usually just doesn't get that many plays. Yes, he could get you that touchdown. Yes, he could get you that red zone quarterback sneak. He's probably going to be used in a couple gadget plays tonight. There's no denying that. But at the same time, I'd rather just take the certainty of having players that have guaranteed snaps and go that way because he's often overpriced and overowned in a lot of these slates.
Back working our way through the Broncos here. I would choose Philip Lindsay over Royce Freeman. Lindsay, didn't catch a lot of passes last year, but if you go look at the games where they were trailing, he did see, and especially later in the season when they weren't trying or spoon in Devontae Booker or whomever after Freeman was hurt, he did get some opportunities there. I don't know what's going to happen tonight just because, hey, we don't know for sure, but I would like to think he will see somewhere between 3 and 5 targets, and I will probably say 10 carries. I would say Freeman is probably, 1 to 3 targets, probably 10 to 12 carries. So it's really going to be a timeshare, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good guess. Lindsay's a little bit better in PPRs. He's got that upside. I think that's going to give you, that he's got that floor from his pass catching ability. I think Royce Freeman's probably a little bit more likely to get the goal line carries. This is one of those situations where it's really hard to read early on in the season. We've been hearing a little bit more that Royce Freeman's going to get more work as the year's gone on. Then they went out and signed Theo Riddick. And now maybe we have like a 3 or 4 down committee. So this is a backfield I'm just going to be avoiding as much as possible, solely based off the fact that it's really hard to predict, and these players are priced up a little bit too much for me. So I'm out on them. You're favoring? Did you say you're favoring Lindsay there?
Yes, just a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I think that's the highest upside play and probably the safest floor play. But at the same time, you never know if Royce Freeman, just like last year, Philip Lindsay's a great example of why we just have no idea what's going to happen going into week 1. So it's always a difficult proposition trying to figure out how these backfields are going to work. But I think your guess of a timeshare is pretty spot on.
All right, let's see. Oh, good. My stuff didn't save. It doesn't make me happy. Interesting. Sorry, I'm just looking here. 1, 2. Okay, it did. There we go. It's always tricky when you're in multiple instances of the old Fantasy Cruncher here. Hey, Fantasy Cruncher add-on. You can get it with your 50% discount on any 1-month package. It is included. If you choose that option, use promo code LiveBeforeLock to get that little extra accoutrement here. Yeah, and now I'm going to double check and just make sure that yes, when I am playing Deshaun Watson and DeAndre Hopkins, they're at least in some lineups together. Yes, they are. Okay. Always makes me a little bit nervous trying to do too many things at once here.
It's tough. You got to get these lineups in. You're doing a show. You got a bunch of browsers. You're hosting. So it's a lot going on. So, what's your take on these wide receivers in this game? So you're not a fan of Manny Sanders. If you've got Joe Flacco, who are you pairing him up with?
I'm not actually going to force it. I didn't set a rule with him for any of his receivers.
All right. Just taking the savings discount, I guess.
Yeah, if he pops in, great. If he doesn't, that's fine as well. I mean, where was? Hang on, I had some fun stuff. But
One guy I'm interested in after watching that T.J. Hawkinson performance yesterday is Noah Fant, 7,200 for the captain spot on DK, which means he is 5,600. Is that right? $4,800. This Oakland Raiders team was 32nd in DVOA defending tight ends last year, so this is a prime spot for them. I think they're probably going to continue being poor at defending tight ends. So I don't know if people will be on him or not, but he's the number one spark tight end athlete in the draft this year. Just so much potential. So get on early, I think, with him. If you don't believe Emmanuel Sanders is healthy and you think he's on a snap count, that means that this ball's either going to Cortland Sutton, Fant, or possibly Deshaun Hamilton. So there's not a lot of great targets out here, but he's going to be their red zone threat, I think.
All right, I'm going 56% Watson on this 2-game slate. I'm going 60% Kamara. Those are my two highest owned guys well, they're not actually, because I've got Hopkins and Michael Thomas at 80. I didn't have my sort set up. But for quarterbacks, it's Watson 56, Brees 20, Carr 6, and then Flacco is 18. But again, I'm not that worried about Flacco.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, like people are sharp; they're going to know where the ownership's going. It's going to Deshaun Watson. It's going to Drew Brees. Flacco and Carr are punts. No, well, punts is probably a strong word for there, but you're basically taking them because they're going to be lower owned, and you're kind of hoping that maybe that Denver offense can exploit this horrible Oakland Raiders defense. So I think it's actually kind of a sneaky play, and we've seen that Flacco can still throw the deep ball once in a while when he wants to. So,
how many seasons has Flacco had more than 25 touchdown passes?
One.
Do you want to know how many? When I won, he had 25 exact, or one or two he had 25 exactly. How many did he have in the one season where he had more than 25?
26.
He had 27.
Wow, that's amazing. I thought he was elite though.
Yeah. He also, let's see, he has topped more than two passing touchdowns once in his last 29 starts. Mm-hmm. And in that same time frame, he has only had 3 100-yard games. If he has a good game, don't beat yourself up about it tonight, because it should not be expected.
Yeah, I think that's fair. What about the Raiders side of the ball here? Are you going to be getting to any Derek Carr?
On the showdown slate, yeah, I will. I think I had him ranked 7th, but he's a quarterback and he's in this game. There's only 2 of them. You play him on the showdown slates. The guy where I'm going to make my stand is Jalen Richard, for sure. I also like their tight end, whose name is escaping me at the moment.
Darren Waller.
Waller, yes.
Yeah. So this is. This was everyone's kind of sneaky last round pick in best ball, I think, for the entire summer.
And I got there too late. I have him on 1 or 2 of 214 teams.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I'm in the same boat as you. I did not get to him, partly because I was just so worried about, like, if you missed out on Waller, you were left with just like this absolute garbage pile of tight ends as your tight end too. So I got a little bit nervous and would just not wait that long. But he's a really intriguing player here. I think my most telling stat about Darren Waller is that they used him on a jet sweep last year in the limited action he saw. So anytime you're using a tight end on a jet sweep, that means he's probably a pretty good athlete. 6'6", 250 pounds. He's always had the talent. He's just had some issues. I think issues with the law, but supposedly he's got everything in order, and he's going to be their number one tight end. And I don't think he's going to be splitting time too much. So love him tonight. I've got him in as many lineups as I can possibly have. On Yahoo, is $10, which is the bare min. So sign me up for as much Waller as possible.
Yeah, that was what I ended up. Literally, I think I have 30% Chris Herndon. As my secondary tight end in best ball.
He's suspended.
I know he won't be playing till week 6, but I needed a tight end too. Yeah. And I'm hoping my tight end 1, whomever it ends up being, is going to be healthy for the first 5 weeks.
That's fair. So, so we're both on Waller. I think that's good. I'm guessing a lot of people are going to be on him. I don't think that's going to surprise anyone, but he's just such a bargain that he makes a lot of sense here. So yeah, fire him up at that price point, I think. What about this Oakland running game? Are you going to be? We have Josh Jacobs at like 9,200 on DraftKings. He's the fifth most expensive player on FanDuel as well. Are you buying into the fact that he's going to be a 3-down back? I know you said Jalen Richard was one of your targets. Do you think that he's going to still take on that 3rd-down pass catching role, or are you are you a believer in Josh Jacobs being their 3-down bell cow back?
I think the second that Jacobs fumbles, gives up a sack, or whatever, he's gonna sit on the bench and just learn a little bit, and either get some encouraging words from Gruden or whatever. But I think there's too much risk at this point to think that he is going to be a 3-down back. Tonight's game.
Yep, that's fair. And it isn't exactly an easy matchup, and we're probably looking at, I'm guessing, a negative game script as well. So, but we do have him rated as a pretty good value on Awesemo.com just because of that price point value, especially on Yahoo where he's just $15. So that's, if you're playing on Yahoo, I think you don't have to lock him in because there are some other running back plays that are pretty good tonight. But that's a situation I think to buy low on if you can get him at a decent price for sure.
All right. What else do we have to hit on from this game?
I don't know. We only got 10 minutes left here. We're getting towards the end. I personally am. I'm not buying into I believe Emmanuel Sanders is healthy. I'm a big Emmanuel Sanders fan, so I think he's going to be back and ready. And I don't think they're going to have him on a snap count tonight. So I think I'm going to be rostering him a little bit in Showdown for sure.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I think he's going to be the most targeted. He's a safe play. He's going to be running out of the slot, right? So you're going to get in full PPR sites. You're going to get that that obviously that added bonus, and just on the basis of the fact that I think he's just a better option than the rest of what they got. Sutton's a boomer bust deep threat who has a really low catch rate. Maybe he's made some strides. It's possible. And then if Deshaun Hamilton's best games came with Manny Sanders out of the lineup, so pick one of those two. Basically, I don't think that he's going to suddenly move out to the outside. So that's where I'm at. But I can certainly see where you're coming from as well. Like, it does make sense. I'm just really basing it off the fact that he looked really good in the preseason, and that's kind of what was telling for me. It's like, if you look really good and you're playing in the preseason, that probably means you're not going to be on a pitch count in week 1.
Okay, I think that's a fair assessment.
Yeah. And then let's see how Denver did against. Denver actually wasn't that great against the run last year, so that makes me a little bit less nervous about going with Josh Jacobs. They were middle of the pack, so I'm not super worried about targeting them. And then of course the other guys is Terrell Williams with Antonio Brown out. The price point is risen a little bit. He is 7,400 if you want to pop him in the captain spot. 7,400 in the non-captain spot. So he's just below Courtland Sutton. There are pretty much only two major targets in this Oakland among these Oakland pass catchers. It's Terrell Williams and it's Darren Waller. So and maybe Jalen Richard in the backfield. So with such a concentrated offense, I think you can go with Terrell Williams tonight too in showdown slates and in your 2-game slates, depending on the price point.
All right, so I'm just loading my last lineups here, doing a little MLB.
Nice.
So that locks before this. The beauty of Fantasy Cruncher, I was it didn't save my settings, but it did on all of them except for my MLB. But that's okay because I had played around with it at lunch because I knew what I wanted to do, so I was able to quickly go in and set my pitching and my stacks. So just a reminder. It is a nice time saver that we can utilize.
Huge time saver, especially if you're MMEing. I started using Fantasy Cruncher last year, and there's still so much to learn about it. It's both time saving and it really makes your lineups better when you start to learn how to use it. I've been watching some of Manny Laura and Lofty's shows. We have them on Mondays and Fridays. The Friday show that we have for the NFL Strategy Show goes over some of the options that you can use for Fantasy Cruncher and builds lineups. That's a great tool to use if you haven't used it before, or if you're just new to Fantasy Cruncher. Go check out Manny Laura's page as well. He does some great videos highlighting some of the techniques that you can use to build better lineups. But it's the best optimizer and the best builder out there. So I'm fortunate that we get to use it on Awesemo.com.
Yes, that is very helpful, and it also is worthwhile on the sites, even if they don't have the CSV upload. It can help you find those combinations that you may have otherwise overlooked, or other hidden errors in your game, and it can allow you to try out different strategies and just see, if I did this, what would the projections do with it? If I did this, what would happen? If I build this group, why am I getting, I don't know, pick a guy. Why am I getting Jameis Winston in all my lineups?
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe it's because one of his players, his receivers, is cheap, and you've said, hey, I'm pairing him with that guy, and he's going to pop in all your lineups. And you sometimes have to do a little digging there and see what's going on or what's happening. It's not a gimme. You don't just get to upload projections and then push the button, because that's not how this. But that's what we have the DFS strategy show for. We run that 6 days a week now, focusing on baseball and NFL now, and then we also will have it for MLB, but we also have it for NHL. It's very, very helpful. We've got videos that show how to use this stuff. It's a lot of help. I'm not seeing a ton of overlay out and about here tonight.
Yeah, that's fair. I think first game back, first Monday nighter. It's a 2-gamer. This is a great opening game. I mean, I can't believe we get this game on Monday night. So I'm not surprised. There's not a lot of overlay. People are super excited to have the NFL back. So we'll wait for the overlays on the Tennessee Titans versus New York Jets week 12 Thursday night matchup. That's when we'll see a little bit of that, I think.
There's always a chance. Always a chance. So as we're ticking down, you want to see if there's any little questions there for us in the chat?
Absolutely. Yeah, let me just load it up here. Sorry, I was having some connectivity issues there. So I'm not currently on there, but let me get on.
1 second.
Are you playing on alternates tonight, Emac?
I've traditionally bitten off way more than I could chew. So there we are.
Nice.
Sometimes that works out in your favor. Sometimes it does not. So be careful.
I'm waiting for Fantasydraft to start offering these showdown slates. It's got to happen soon, right?
There's a decent chance they will, but again, they're running back their million. So they've got the Hooters million.
Breaking boundaries in this.
Oh, that's
got a little sound problem there.
Features that keep.
Let's see. Grant or Renfro are better than Carter is a statement here. Carter, I think, returns kicks a little bit. Might be out there with QT dinged up, but he's way down the pecking order. I would probably go Renfro myself. Bringing that one up for the late game. Renfro steps up a little bit more into the pecking order with the Antonio Brown saga. Can we really trust Tyrell Williams to be a number one? And Grant has been around forever. He did absolutely nothing with the 49ers, and then he's back. I think last year, good God, it was either Minnesota or Indianapolis. But his career numbers, he has 120 catches and 1,200 yards and 4 touchdowns in 6 years.
Who are we talking about?
Ryan Grant.
Oh God, not on my radar. I don't think you need to go that deep tonight, honestly.
Yeah, but it's showdown. There are about 25 viable plays, so you got to mention all of them. I thought I put some notes here. Yeah, so Ryan Grant, 4 years with Washington, last year with Indianapolis, 120 or 119 catches, 1,300 yards, 7 touchdowns. Not going to be there. And he's got David Carr throwing to him. That's not going to help him either. Oh, did we have to wait and see? J.J. Nelson is the inactive we don't know yet for that last game. I don't think he's going to play. He has a sore ankle. His game is completely predicated on speed, taking the top off the defense. I don't think Carr, and I've probably said David Carr multiple times, I don't think Derek Carr is what, have I?
I said we all do that from time to time. I still call the Chargers. I'm going to be calling the Chargers the San Diego Chargers until the dad dies. So.
Oh yeah, that's an issue as well. As is, who's the other one? Now it'll pop back in my mind. But in any event, Derek Carr just doesn't have the best arm. So I don't, feel that great about J.J. Nelson, even if he were healthy. I'd still rather go to Waller for sure. The one thing we want to remember about Waller is he was behind Cook last year. Cook had a phenomenal season because he was the biggest guy closest to the line, as the announcers like to say. So that's who Derek Carr would scan and see first. That's going to be Waller this year. So I really think he's going to be interesting. Does he have a TJ Hawkinson like performance today? Probably not. But amongst our choices here, because I don't think that Carr's going to throw for more than 25 passes either. I think this is going to be a running game, and it's going to be by committee on both sides.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this game just has like 13-10 written all over it. So fire up the D, fire up the kickers, fire up. If you're playing Showdown, I don't know. I feel like it's just going to be the exact opposite of the first game. So, but you never know. Things can surprise. Week 1 is a lot of guesswork, and even though this game only has like a 41 or 42 point total, it's crazier things have happened, right? So, just stick to those traditional methods. Do a little stacking. Try to craft a narrative if you're playing Showdown slate. We saw the Packers D won someone $1 million last Thursday night in the captain spot. So, and that was actually one of Osimo's favorite plays of the night, which was amazing. But just craft a narrative. Try to find some cheap options. Don't be afraid in a game like this to pop the kicker or the defense in the captain spot, and try to differentiate that way if you're playing Showdown.
All right, we're going to hit one last reminder. Fantasydraft, the only completely rake-free site in daily fantasy. They are partnered with Hooters, bringing in the largest guaranteed rake-free contest back once more. They're running that back for $1 million. It's the $1 million Hooters kickoff. All of their other contests rake-free as well. All you have to do to sign up and get your first $1,000 of play, and you have 1 week to get through that. It's when you sign up, just when you go to choose your little package that you want for their subscription, is you'll want to choose the promo code AWESEMO, AWESEMO. When you sign up, it is going to say that they are going to charge you 3% for depositing your fees. That's totally fine. It's about 1.5% to have whatever their little subscription is at the lowest level. Meaning, if what you're paying on $3,000, really from $3,001 to the next $10,000 level. If I'm just looking at that $3,000, it's 1%. If you play $10,000, it doesn't even round up to 0.5%. So let me think about that. That's going to be about 3.5% total. That's it. One and done, unless you got to deposit again. Fanduel, Draftkings, 15.9% on the majority of their contests. Which is more, Nolan, 15.9% or 3.5%?
15.9.
15.9 would be more. Would be significantly more. So just pointing that out. Pointing it out. It's very easy to put the money in. So if you want to, just dabble with, 50, 100, $200, you have the option to do that by using the promo code AWESEMO. And again, you get 7 days to play through 1,000. So I used the promo code AWESEMO, and I think this first weekend I played $700-800. So I'm about at the end of it, but that's okay. Now if you choose it, today, tomorrow, even Wednesday, wink, wink, nod, nod, you're going to get 2 NFL weeks in on that because they posted their Sunday's contest tonight. So you could register and still play through, even if your little subscription runs out after 7 days, because you will have already registered for the contest. So be smart, pick the appropriate day, plan ahead, and all of a sudden you got a pretty good deal there. That's going to be it for us, Nolan. That's going to be it. We're locked.
First of 17.
First of 17. That is correct. Going to be a good time.
Let's enjoy this game.
Absolutely. So we're going to dip on out of here. You guys can follow Nolan at Nolan, not 1_, but 2_ Kelly. That's Nolan _ Kelly. It's a Canadian thing. There was something in the money exchange rate, the currency, the underscore exchange rate was high when Nolan chose his Twitter handle.
We're charging for underscores.
Yes, you could find me at EMACDFS, and it is AWESEMO 1_ CLM. With that, gamers, good luck.